In this third clip, we continue looking at the doctrine of the one and the many in discussing deeper philosophical issues. Now, we're looking at this problem in the doctrine of the one and the many from two perspectives. In the last clip, we looked at it from the perspective of change. All things are flux, we heard. No man can step into the same river twice. But then we also heard that all is fixed. Everything consists of the same basic, unchanging substance. And that's the whole struggle of the one and the many. Behind all things and all reality, how do we find this oneness? Does it exist, and what is it? The second perspective we look at now is not just that things move and change, but that we have an incredible amount of particles that seem to work in perfect unison, keeping the world in order. These innumerable parts moving together. How do we explain that? Now, the two classic Greek philosophers who really opened up that discussion, and that's why the West still today is fascinated with this discussion, and it's a real discussion. It's an important discussion. So the first of these men is Plato, and the other is his student Aristotle. Plato said that the way to connect these things is through universals. All these individual things have some universal idea that connects them together. So, for instance, you have the universal table, but you have many different tables. You have kitchen tables, you have work desks, you have restaurant dining tables, you have garden tables, all of them different shapes and sizes, different purposes, and yet this is one universal table. And then eventually he comes to the great universal. Through connecting various universals together, he comes to the one universal that represents all universals. That was his idea. So that was his view of reality. So we speak of Plato's realism, yet it was an idea. It was his ideal. So he's also an idealist. And so these philosophical terms we need to see in their context. Secondly, we have Aristotle. Aristotle said no. Making things universals and getting a great idea makes things too distracted, too far from the truth. And so he said everything is named. And he was a nominalist. So you have the universal, the universalist or the realist, and then you have the nominalist. And Plato said everything has form and it has matter. So there's a unique form to a garden table, for instance, and unique matter. So a thing is named by what you see and what its content is of its material that it makes. And so Aristotle developed this matter of this teaching of form and matter, and he's famous for that. We still use it today. These discussions didn't really resolve the problem. What lies behind all these different parts, and what is a true unity? Now, we often, when we speak of the Greek philosophers, we don't realize that part of their whole system was paganism, religions. I think somewhere years back when we saw the Greek Olympics, well, the Olympics are the Greek Olympics, but there was a modern day Olympics held in Greece, and they displayed this paganism in all its glory at the opening and closing ceremony of the Athens Olympics. And why is that important for our discussion that we are having in this series of clips on church and state? Well, These Greeks and pagans, the Romans after them, did not have a true understanding of what our world is and what are the problems in our world. So they just saw order and chaos as all part of the same thing. That's very different for the Christian who says, yes, there was perfect order, but through the fall of man and rebellion against God, things all changed. How does that relate to church and state? We will discuss that in our next clip, where we look at the whole question of knowledge and what brings true unity.